Good evening. Today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of being like water in the way you think. Not too solid, but not too gaseous. Because if you are too solid, first of all, you are too subject to order, too defiant of change, too closed off, too disagreeable, too much routine, making you slave to the totalitarian dictates of your prefrontal cortex, and too left brain within that. The left side of your brain is adapted for narrow focus, while the right side for the broad, the big picture. Think a single fundamental line, the left side, versus a whole painting, the right side. These are the differences in their functionalities. Being too left or solid in your higher thinking limits your potential, as you have no flexibility, no growth, no new prospects to branch into. When something bad happens to you, you dwell in it, fester in it for too long, causing you to become increasingly wary, stuck, and stagnant over time. You will fail to be opportunistic, and you will never discover if there's a different goal better suited for you in life, perhaps blinded by naive childhood ideologies when, what did you really know back then? And so you will not reorient yourself, and you will love too little, and in the end, you will find yourself unmotivated and failing. But then on the other hand, you can't be too gaseous either in your thinking. You are too defiant of order and too subject to change this way, too open and too agreeable with no routine. You are too right brain in your thinking, making you vulnerable to a slippery, relatively bottom-up dynamic with your animal brain beneath. And by your animal brain, I primarily mean your basal ganglia and mesolimbic pathway, structures that reside beneath your cortex. Being too right or too gaseous in this sense limits your sense of self, as you have no backbone, no integrity, no established foundation of values from which to grow. When something bad happens to you, you don't stop long enough to really consider it, to integrate it, to learn anything from it. This way, everything is kept vague and foggy. Nothing can really hurt you because you are not truly committing to anything, truly letting something define who you are. This creates a false sense of aptitude for creativity and innovation. And while it may be true that you have more access to the source that feeds these forces, your results will always fall short and be shallow because you are incapable of truly capturing new ideas and giving them form because you provide no scaffolding for them. You cannot turn and face chaos completely unequipped this way because it's too many options and too many decisions to take in, because it's every option and every decision all at once. It's too easy to bite off more than you can chew, and when you do, you end up overwhelmed and paralyzed. But you cannot not face it at all. You cannot make yourself too vulnerable to the temptations of the animal brain, but you also cannot tame it completely. You cannot have no routine, but you also cannot behave like a machine. And so you must take the middle ground and be like water. Gas, solid, chaos, order, yin, yang. One cannot exist without the other, and it is between them wherein universal truth lies. The same lesson has been told 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different people throughout thousands of years of history. Its theme is balance. But how exactly does this manifest in one's day-to-day life? True thinking entails give and take, like the tides of the ocean. You need to be able to modify and adjust, to be open to new ideas while not completely forsaking the old. But at the same time, everyone needs a concrete, specific goal and purpose to frame chaos and make sense of his or her life, a way of approaching and formulating. This is where creativity within constraints comes into play as a model. The more chaotic and disorganized your material is, the more taxing, the more you'll have to keep track of as you create, and you only have so much cognitive bandwidth. Resources are limited. With this in mind, learn to play yourself like a biological instrument. Human motivation is like a complex wind instrument of reward pathways, and everyone's is different. We are left to our own subjective devices in this sense. The journey, the balance to being like water really is your own. You have to find what makes you tick. However, one way that I personally manifest this being like water philosophy in my day-to-day routine is that I lay out an overarching to-do list schedule, but I allow it to subjectively flex in accordance with the broader theme I subliminally associate with each day of the week. What I mean by this is I feel that each day of the week has a broader theme socially or culturally associated with it, which subliminally affects the way we feel on that day. And I cater my schedule to the activities that seem to naturally correspond with said themes, capitalizing on the relatively low motivation thresholds for the corresponding activities. For instance, Sunday for me feels more spiritual, so I will go harder on meditation and reading because I pseudo-naturally find myself just wanting to on that day. Similarly, I have an easier time exercising on Mondays because I am inclined to detox from the weekend's festivities then. Tuesday, I focus hard on work and other worldly responsibilities. Wednesday, I feel the most creative, so I will conduct an artistic hobby usually that day. Thursday is a flex day for me, and then Friday and Saturday get more social bandwidth. If you are one of the people who found my previous video personally helpful but are still struggling, you may benefit from mastering this underlying fundamental thinking first and foremost, as it may help keep a mindset that facilitates recovery best. Let me know what you think of this, if this makes sense to you, if it's common knowledge to you, whatever critique you have. I think that to an extent it is common knowledge and it's an intuitive thing to say. As I mentioned, it's been reiterated many times, rehashed throughout history, a lot in recent history. But sometimes things like that, we hear them so much, it becomes like white noise and it's almost transient to us and we don't actually even take it to heart. Balance, this old commandment, this old philosophy, etc. Like, whatever, that's, of course, like that, it's very high level and, there's no need to really dissect it. But there is, there's a reason that it's kind of something that everyone has heard before.